Okay, so yeah, I did do a presentation last year. This one is very similar, other than just a couple of changes in that I hope it can be more of a workshop base, in that maybe we can do some very simple contributions. I'm just going to ask two questions, and if you'd like to do some input, that would be amazing. And I look forward to your contributions. So just a little bit about myself. Before I came to Green Building Solutions, I was a project manager in Ireland, and I worked in the retrofit market. So that was old buildings in Ireland, social housing predominantly. The houses were very inefficient, and our role as a contractor was to insulate them very well, put new heating systems in, and the major problem, of course, was ventilation in old buildings. So that's where I started off before I came to Green Building Solutions. Um, it was more so, yeah, a very hands-on project manager role. Um, and yeah, really enjoyed this time. I did it for about a year after I left university, and before I went to Green Building Solutions. Just a quick note on the year that I went in 2015. There was 32 of us from 20 different countries around the world. It was a little bit different in that we were actually in Vienna. I know this year there's a few students meeting in Vienna, and getting to know each other, which has been really nice to see. I've been following the students on the bicycles, visiting the passive house that we stayed in. So that's been really refreshing to see students back in Austria. And I hope, yeah, in the future that more courses can all come to Austria, and students can meet, because it was a really special time. I still keep in touch with quite a few of my alumni students. One messaged me an hour ago from Germany. It was really nice to just get a message from her, and it brought back nice memories. So yeah, all different countries throughout the world. We had Brazil, Iran, Canada, Bhutan, myself from Ireland. It was an amazing mixture of people, and we really got on very well, and we made good friendships. I guess you may have read a few bits and pieces here. I was originally a projects engineer, so I was managing energy efficiency upgrades. And then when I did my Green Building Solutions program, it kind of opened me up to more design, technical planning, architectural routes. And then this kind of stimulated me to go and find new opportunities. I did actually become a carpenter. In 2016, I started a building apprenticeship for 3 years in New Zealand. And then that kind of brought me into upcycling projects. I'll talk about an example of waste management that I saw on site. And rather than just giving out about it or being disappointed, I picked up the wood and I made something out of it, and shared it on Facebook and shared it online, started conversations with people, and hopefully, inspired a few people to do something similar. And through that, then, of course, we did build a tiny house. We got all our waste material, we collected it in a warehouse, we stored it for over a year, and we will go into detail about some of the material that we did use on the project. So yeah, I guess the last point, just with you guys being involved in the course, cross-cultural bonding, it's very important. We all have the same challenges now. The last few weeks, the world has been flooded. We've been really having big challenges with water management, excessive flooding. So we all have to manage these, complex things together. And I think the stronger our relationships are across cultures, then the better we'll be enforced to deal with these massive issues. So yeah, this is just the first question. It's totally optional, but as we go, if you feel like you have seen a tiny house before in your designs, or you are an architectural student who likes to sketch small spaces, if you are an AIM student and you think, how could a tiny house be built into a different kind of monetary example? How can we look at tiny house as a feasible option? And of course, personally, what does a tiny space look like to you? So please feel free as we go to have a sketch, maybe draw a word, write a small sentence. Feel free to share it, at any time or at the end, or you can send it on to me later if you wish. And that, I hope, would be a really nice thing to do, and quite fun. So, yeah, this is 2015. This is a picture of almost all of us, I think. We're actually in Vienna, in one of the amazing centers where we were emulating the sun, and creating designs together. Again, working in teams. So just to reiterate, getting to know each other, learning how to communicate strongly, people from all parts of the world. So it was a really nice time, and really fun to be able to design with people from all different backgrounds, architects, planners, engineers, all debating and discussing, and working out how we can do things together. Yeah, here we are, also just having an evening of getting to know each other. Again, people from different parts and different places, learning how to communicate respectfully together, and learning um, each other's country, about each other's countries, and each other's yeah, planning, architectural, and building students. I see from all different parts of the world here. So good times and good memories that you're all in the midst of at the moment. Mhm. Projects, teamwork, this is what, yeah, I think third week now you'll be kicking off with. I do have good memories of presenting our project. It was a massive social housing development that we had to retrofit. Again, the positive for us was we got to visit this space. We got to walk all along the building, look and touch it, walk up the stairs, understand how complex it is to retrofit, but always achievable, and working together to do that. So best of luck this week with your projects kicking off. So kind of going into the introduction to how Tiny House began, I mentioned that I did start off an apprenticeship in New Zealand. So this was where I worked mostly for those 2-3 years, in that we were on quite large buildings. This is something that at the time I thought was an amazing thing. These beautiful big buildings, all this space, all this beauty. But later on, I will talk about how maybe this was a bit too much for individuals, and we can have a debate about that. So yeah, again, big, massive details. Lots of concrete, lots of scaffold, lots of hours of labor. While it was an amazing thing to be doing, I was always in my mind that this is a bit much, this is a bit excessive, and do we really need all of this material, and all of this potential waste that could be coming from such a massive building. Again, yeah, at the time we did do underfloor heating throughout. So you might be aware of underfloor heating, or you will be learning about it in the program. And it was just so much, this was a huge building, and there was lots of pipe work, lots of plastic, which was all coming from different parts of the world to New Zealand at the time. And again, in the back of my mind, I thought, well, isn't this a little bit excessive? Can we do this a bit differently? So all these thoughts were kind of coming as I was building houses, which kind of led me on then to wonder what we could do. This is the end finish of that building. So again, it was 420 square meters, and 2 people were living in the house. So lots of details, so much time, and there was almost 15 full skips of waste that went to landfill from this one project alone. So yeah, trying to get into the mindset of how can we eliminate that? How can we reduce this excessive waste just for a building for 2 people? Again, here's a picture of one of the skips. Beautiful wood. This is all really expensive wood, cedar usually. And again, there was just no management at the time. And this is only a few years ago in New Zealand, clean and green, but not really. Actually, quite a complex issue that they're not managing quite well. So rather than giving out about it, it was time to do something, and time to get creative with this waste. So I created a small little business. It was not a full-time, it was just a part-time job that I really enjoyed doing. And it was just myself and sometimes my friends. And we created Upcycle Wanaka. And what that was just pulling waste out of the skips you see here and trying to turn it into something creative. Taking pictures, sharing it online, trying to start a conversation with anybody and people from all different countries, and trying to be creative, of course, as we go. Again, these materials are beautiful. You know, you pay a lot of money for these kind of beautiful materials. Usually they come from other countries or they need to be shipped long distances, and there's just no management in place to, you know, deal with the offcuts and the pieces that, you know, while they are small pieces of material, still can be used. So we just kept going, kept doing small projects, and turned all this waste into functional furniture, or something creative that we could come up with. And in this case, it was our kitchen table. So yeah, all of the waste that we made, we tried to do projects for ourselves. And then some people would message us and ask me if they could do something similar. And that's kind of how it started. Hmm. This was one of my favorite customers. We built her kitchen table for her. And yeah, it was really nice to just get some, you know, photographs of how she used the space. And again, it wasn't just myself, it was also the customer who, you know, wanted to share this online and took pride in that. She contributed to a sustainable, you know, business. And I think that is important, with all of our choices, in that if we can, you know, stimulate people to make sustainable choices, people will take great pride in that and they will share it now online, and it will go long distances. It will go across countries, and people will tell their friends. And I guess, you know, when you see these big floods around the world and these big issues, this is what kind of kept me going, kept me motivated, and looking forward to more. And yeah, now this was kind of the time when all of this waste was gathering. We had just had a young baby at the time as well, so we needed to get out of the rental market. And we decided to build a tiny house. So tiny houses were a big thing. We didn't realize, we spent hours and hours and hours watching YouTube, reading books, drawing sketches, sentences, writing what was important to us. And number one was, you know, minimal, being minimal. How much space did we need for our little family? And it turned out to be 26 square meters was all we really needed. We had a lounge downstairs, we had a bedroom upstairs, and downstairs we also created a full bathroom and a small bedroom for our little boy, who's now 3. So this was enough space for us at the time, and that's how we designed the house. So optional input too here, you may read. I did mention this about a week ago online, is, you know, how much space do we really need to prosper? And I think this is something that, you know, was really beneficial for students to brainstorm, and design and be creative. There's no one answer to this question. It is really different in terms of countries, different in terms of cultures. You know, certain cultures like to have more space, like to have more personal space, bigger living rooms, whereas other cultures and countries like to have small spaces, you know, more intimate spaces. So yeah, I guess this is the part of the workshop where, you know, I ask for a little bit of contribution if you wish. Um, just maybe jot down a few words that you can share later, draw a sketch, something that may be on your mind in terms of, you know, how much space do I need? You know, what is functional for me? What is functional for communities? You know, communities, of course, then do need lots of space, lots of social area, ways of getting to work. So all of this for me begins in the housing design and the spaces and how we design them. And doing this project really helped me, you know, be creative with that and come out with these ideas eventually. So yeah, maybe we can discuss that a bit more at the end. So just, yeah, I'll go through a couple of pictures. This was, yeah, 2018. It's me and my little son. He is about 6 months old there. We started the project on a really, really tight budget. It was just over 20,000 euros at the time. And this was it. We bought a trailer and we got going. It was, yeah, a large amount of recycled, upcycled materials. We were living in another house locally, and we had a garage. And as we were building, we were also resourcing materials locally. So using social tools, Facebook, Marketplace, all of these tools, trying to meet people who were throwing things away, selling things for cheap. And we would just gather them and store them in a garage space locally. And then we would build as we kind of went along. So we did have an initial set of plans, but we also got creative in how we found material and made the material work for the building. And again, that's something I'd like to now start talking about at scale. If a apartment block is being demolished in Vienna, how can all of the materials in this apartment block support another building locally? You know, all of the doors that might need to be used, all of the windows, can all of those materials be moved a short distance for the next project? So in your design and in your planning, maybe, you know, looking at the project, how can materials in one space be transitioned a shortest distance possible for their next use? And that's probably, you know, where I'll find, you know, new ideas in the future. I think is really going to be utilizing materials not just once, but 2, 3, 4 times in their life cycles. So here's the frame. My question here was tiny passive house, how small can we go? You may have been learning about form factor in passive housing. It's actually quite tricky to build a passive house that is very small to the passive house standard. So yeah, we just went for a well-insulated building. It wasn't to the passive house. We had a little air-to-air heat pump that was heating the space. And it was also air conditioning in the winter. New Zealand has a very hot winter, a very cold winter and a very hot summer. So we kind of designed the space just to suit the two different extremes. So this is myself, and this is just one short example. I did present this last year, but I really, really love this example because this window was getting thrown into a skip and put into landfill. So we found it online, and we brought it home with us, and we fitted it to suit our property. So this is myself installing it. This is, of course, the building to suit the waste. So the frame had to be built to suit the triangular window, of course. And then it was, yeah, designed around the waste. So while the building had a preliminary design, we found this piece of material, changed the designs, and made it work for the building itself. And then, yeah, a little bit of fun detailing. Again, yeah, I did share this last year and I got some nice responses. All of this here is waste. Everything you see, this was all just offcuts, things people were throwing away, small screws, even some of the screws on site I would pick up and put in a box that were just lingering around, and that was enough. That was enough for us, for 3 people. All of these offcut materials made a small space work. And then, yeah, simple design means more time for fun, more budget to be able to do things creatively. And we were really happy that this was our living room. You know, this was enough for us, and still would be. We don't need much space personally. And yeah, we really enjoyed this full process of using a material that we found that was getting thrown away and making it work for our use. So I hope you enjoy that. Again, yeah, not going into too much detail, as you will be, about shading and overheating of spaces. You will be going into technical details about this, but I just believe simple is the best. We did position the property just off north. Of course, it is the southern hemisphere, so it is in reverse in New Zealand. And we did just put a simple soffit over our large window. which prevented overheating in the summer. And yeah, just enjoying it, enjoying that it was a bit of a process. This window had a crack in it. We had to get it fixed. There was scratches on it. We needed to repaint it. So you have to be aware that yes, you can just go and buy new materials, and sometimes it actually works out the same price when you calculate, your time that you spend in making the material good again. So maybe in your project works, this can be something that's looked into in a bit more detail. The price of making all this material good again. It's very easy and well to say, let's do it, let's use all this material, but you do have to calculate the real cost in doing so. And it did take many hours to get to this point. Yeah, so enjoying it while we could. Yeah, so this is something that was really, really important to us. Yeah, we had a lot of friends come and help us. So while we did have, time gifted to us, there was also time in trading. So I had a certain set of skills, learning how to become a builder, and I could share them with other people in the community, other friends of mine. Here you'll see a artist, a stonemason, a painter, and an architect, and me. So I was so fortunate to be surrounded by some skilled people, and we traded hours of our time. So no money being exchanged, it was skills exchanged. So bringing into the AIMS students, alternative economics, this was exchanging time, skills, rather than exchanging, money, of course. Bonds were created for life. I still have great friends through doing so. It was really, really hard work. But that through that we become more resilient, more reliant on each other, and it creates, strong communities. This is me and my little boy, just saying take breaks. I put this in just to slow down my own presentation a little bit, just to take a breather. Yeah, so this was it. This was our life for 10 months. We were building outside of our spare time and just trying to have a little bit of fun in between, enjoy the process, which was always easier said than done. And yeah, just coming on to the creative side again, I've mentioned it a few times. This is one of my friends, Kate. She is an artist in New Zealand, and she creates, functional structures, creative spaces at festivals, and we created a few projects together. And these short few slides are just about collaboration. Again, all of this material was taken from an old farm locally. We stored it up in a garage again locally, put it in the car, brought it out to the festival, and we created an entrance space into a creative zone. The zone had painting, it had spoken word, people were, presenting projects, artwork. So yeah, just a bit more on the creative side of using waste and using old materials. We collaborated together in this particular piece. Kate presented a photography project, and we did, of course, out of old pallets, which are kind of the traditional upcycle material, of course. And we came together and we built this structure on site. This stayed up for a couple of days, and Kate presented all of her photography imagery, and we had a really nice time putting it together to make the final product, which was essentially a nighttime piece. So it was all lit up at night. There was lots of lighting, and she got a really great response from the festival. All the people who went were really happy about it. And I guess from the term in terms of upcycling, using material again, we deconstructed all of this structure, and she continues to use it for other presentations. Another artist used it as well to present his work. So again, just trying to get into the mindset of building a structure, knowing that you're going to be disassembling it in time. And when it's disassembled, how can those materials be used again and again and again? And I think there's a lot of value in the planning element here, in in how these materials can be taken apart and put back together again for another usage. Throughout, Barbara mentioned at the beginning, yeah, we incorporated a little bit of permaculture. It's something I'm still learning a lot about, is how to grow food, how to kind of not be fully self-sufficient, but creating communities where it's part of the community to grow small amounts of food and share skills in doing so. So here we shared a bit of land with our landlady, and we used to grow small amounts of food, which we would have, of course, to eat and then to share with our friends who helped us build a house. We would cook them some meals from the food we grew on the land. So that was really, really nice thing to do. And it just creates a really strong bond in that we need each other. We need each other to share skills. And of course, yeah, one of our key foundations is food. We really need to think about food security, small scale food production. So maybe this might stimulate you for your project work coming up, to think about how can the buildings produce a little bit of food, or encourage food production. Maybe a small market can be put on the site that you may be building a project for. Weekly markets are a really popular thing in denser areas, where food comes from the surround into the cities every week. So yeah, hopefully just an idea or two for your project works coming up. Yeah, I guess this is just a bit of a brain dump. We did a lot of things kind of happened. We were kind of a master of none. So we had to manage our own waste, of course. So grey and black water usage, we had to manage ourselves. Managing food waste. So rather than putting food in with landfill and sending that to a landfill area, it's all about separating food waste, separating, of course, plastics and recycling, and separating landfill, and ensuring that whatever goes to landfill, it really has to be just what goes to landfill, and we can't mix food scraps in with that. It does create incredibly toxic environments, and it's not that challenging a thing to do. So why I'm bringing this in now is how can we make this happen at a big scale? So maybe again in project works, how can food management and waste management be designed? So all of the materials and food that come to your site every day and come into your community, how is that moved on and created or kept going through a circular principle? So rather than us using food, creating a waste and then putting it to landfill, how can we keep the waste going around in the circle and keep it keep maximizing how we use it? Of course, food scraps can be turned into compost that can be used again for the following year and sold again back into the community. So yeah, just kind of a lot of ideas. And this is something, again, if you'd like to contribute to, I'd be more than happy to hear. But mostly it's about how can we make small scale changes happen at the big scale. Again, I've mentioned it once or twice, we do have complex challenges around the world right now. So we do need to think, very quickly, how can we make, small scale habits happen in the large scale? So I hope that in showing you my example, that there was a little bit of, inspiration in how using a small piece of material can be brought into the mainstream, into projects, into planning documents, and really just ensuring that we do these things at massive scales so that we have big impacts. And that's it for today, for this morning. This was my little boy. Every Saturday we would go to the building shop and he would help me pick up materials. So just kind of a smile to finish. And yeah, look, thank you very much for being here with me and us. And yeah, if you did happen to do any sketches or designs, or you wrote down any ideas, If you want to share them now, that would be amazing. But if you prefer to, think for a little bit longer, or maybe, you like to be creative in the evening time, feel free to just do some floor plans, do some drawings. If you've seen a tiny house you like, please take a picture and send it to me. I'm a tiny house nerd through and through. So yeah, I'd love to hear from you, get in touch. And thank you so much for your time today.